Good morning. This is Steve Hoffaker. I want to welcome everyone to our roughly monthly webinars. We do these every 5 or 6 weeks. This is our way of giving back to you for your enrolling in the programs that we have, the CAPS, the Universal Design, and some of the other programs. This is a continuing education program. It's free, and we invite industry leaders from around the world. Today, we have a Canadian representative. This is Randy Schellenberg from ComforTek Seating from Lethbridge, Alberta in Canada. He's going to be doing a program on his seating options. I think you've seen this mentioned in the CAPS program that we have, the CAPS 3, and you'll also notice it on the affiliated products page on the website. Without further ado, by the way, this program is being recorded and you can watch it later on the webinar page. And Randy, take it away.
Thank you so much, Steve. And it is truly a pleasure to be here. Yes, my name is Randy Schellenberg, president of ComforTek Seating. The title of our webinar today is Specialized Seating for Seniors and Caregivers. And maybe that's an interesting twist, but that's what we want to have a look at today. And the tagline, why today's dining chairs are outdated and fail to meet the needs of aging seniors. The premise in this title is that chairs fail. And so I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to explain to you the role of a chair, how a chair functions, and how the current designs are really not adding additional dignity and self-worth to the senior nor to the caregiver. So let me begin. I've got a few slides by introduction, and then we'll get right into it. As you're aware, a little over 90% of seniors, if they choose, would like to stay at home. They'd like to do that for as long as possible. And while for some, aging in place is their preference, for some it is the only option as they can't afford the other style of living. The challenge, however, remains the same, enabling seniors to age in a place which they enjoy and where they feel at home. Home provides them with a sense of purpose and meaning. It prevents or eliminates incidents of falls or injuries as they are familiar with their surroundings. So those are the things that all come to bear when we look at aging in place, staying in one's home. My journey began some 6 years ago when my uncle asked me to design a dining chair which would enable him to enjoy a meal with his wife. She had lived with mobility limitations for a number of years, and they found it difficult to enjoy mealtime together. He showed me several chairs which they had purchased, none of which worked well for them. He too was a senior and not always steady on his feet. What we want to look at today are insights and designs that we have gleaned in this particular process. Today's agenda, we're going to look at the home care reality. We understand that as people age, our footprint becomes smaller, and the focus is primarily on the bedroom, the bathroom, the living room, and the kitchen. We can add the garage, we can add the porch, the front of the house to it, but the actual footprint of the house becomes fairly small. And so how do we occupy this particular space in a manner that is safe for us to do so? So we're going to look at home care reality. We're going to look at some of the limitations of furniture and caregivers. And once we've covered that, then we're going to get into looking at a few options. One of the options that we're going to look at in detail is a chair caddy, which is a retrofit piece that attaches to existing chairs. We're going to look at a series of chairs that swivel, turn, and roll. We're going to look at some bariatric options. And then I want to identify some of the marketing materials that we have. So should this be something you want to add into your portfolio, you'll be able to do so with the tools that we have available. Truly, the kitchen and the dining room is the heart of the home. It is where we are nourished. It's where we gather. It's good for the body, the mind, and the soul, and it's used by all. It's at the dining table where intergenerational relationships are fostered and cherished. But what if I don't have the strength or the coordination to get seated at the table? The reality of aging is that there is increased limited mobility that all of us go through. Typically, our loved ones, the seniors, they feel that they're a burden to family or staff. They feel that they're a nuisance or an inconvenience. They certainly don't want to be singled out, and quite frequently they resent use of a wheelchair, as a wheelchair to them is seen as simply one appliance before the gurney. Caregivers, whether they're spouses or family members, they experience time constraints. They lack the physical strength required to offer assistance, sometimes working with outdated equipment or furniture, and they risk injury to themselves as they're accommodating heavier residents. And yet the families still expect that their parents and their loved ones will always be treated with dignity and respect. Comment that we quite often receive is that I just didn't believe that meal times would be so difficult. So what are the challenges? The journey of aging robs many of the ability to move and live independently. The decline in mobility prevents many from doing even the simple things in life, enjoying a meal with friends or working on a Christmas puzzle. Caregivers, spouses, family members endure a sense of helplessness, as often there's nothing they can do to improve the situation. Caregivers frequently lack the physical strength required to assist a person to a place of greater comfort or enjoyment. This is further complicated when one spouse is a senior and is also the primary caregiver for another one. So daily mealtime challenges: how to assist a seated person up to a table, how to move a person of 300 pounds get seated at a table, and maybe the toughest one is how to assist a person who's lost the ability to understand verbal instructions get seated at a table. It's all about what the caregiver can provide. Unfortunately, as my uncle found out, traditional furniture is not always adequate or is inadequate. Dining chairs were not designed to move. Dining chairs require friction to remain upright. The increased use of cushioned flooring creates a problem, and size matters as seniors are getting heavier. We've all experienced the plastic chair syndrome that we sit on during summertime. And if you sit on a plastic chair that is out on a really smooth concrete floor, if the person that's seated is a little too heavy, all of a sudden the legs will splay out and boom, the person will fall to the floor. The same thing occurs when you take that chair and put it onto a grass. Now you've got great friction, but you have that same person sit in, and ultimately the same chair will just lean off to the side, resulting in exactly the same thing with the seated person finding themselves on the floor. And so dining chairs by their nature are required to stand. They require friction between each of the four legs and the floor to operate. And so if you've got a chair sitting on a tile floor, there's an ability of being able to move it, but there's also a chance that the chair can splay and collapse on you. The increased use of cushioned flooring is something that has been pioneered for senior living. It certainly prevents the seriousness of injuries when a fall occurs, but you can also appreciate that the softer floor creates a pocket or a cavity under each leg, making it virtually impossible for the chair to be moved. Green tennis balls are just not the solution in all cases for this style of furniture. So if we acknowledge that we have a caregiver, we acknowledge that we have furniture and a person that has to be seated, how is it that a person literally gets seated at the table? We've all done so many times. I'm not too sure what type of a chair you're sitting in at this webinar, but in all likelihood, it's a task chair of some sort. You'll have a seat that swivels and you'll have casters. Well, that's really not what we're talking about here. We're looking at a four-legged chair. How do you get seated at the table? An able-bodied person typically positions the chair, gets seated in the chair. Once seated, lifts the chair slightly and scoots forward, and voila, you are positioned at the table. I challenge each one of you to try it after the seminar. Approach a dining table, stand behind the chair, and just monitor the steps that are required for you to get yourself into the chair and then move forward. And after you're seated, just stop. Are you close enough to the table to eat a meal safely without risk of spilling? In all likelihood, you aren't. And so it's that last bit. How do you now lift the chair slightly and scoot forward? Mobility challenged person has exactly the same steps. The difference is that they require a caregiver's assistance in each one of those steps in terms of being moved up to a table. So we do have a situation where a caregiver risks physical injury every time that they have to provide assistance. So how much effort can a caregiver actually provide in terms of lifting, pushing, or pulling? According to a study done by the Silverstone Group, a person can repeatedly lift 35 pounds without the risk of injury. That same person can also push 20% of their body weight or pull 30% of their body weight. And in reality, it's all three of these things that you're using when you're assisting somebody up to a table. So we've given you some examples. If you're a 140-pound caregiver, you can lift 35 pounds. You can push 28 or pull 42. And a 200-pound caregiver is able to lift approximately the same amount of weight repeatedly, push a little more, 40 pounds, and pull 60. Well, I don't think any of us have a loved one that weighs less than 60 pounds. The reality is that we're moving not just a chair, but we're moving a chair and the seated person. So if the person you're moving is 100 pounds plus, you can see that caregivers are risking personal injury every time they get involved in terms of being able to move somebody up to a table. So in terms of looking at the design of a chair, we need to do a little more than just have a chair that's pleasing to an eye or a chair that is sturdy. What we really need to do is we need to meet the needs of the caregiver as well as those of the seated person. So how does a caregiver or spouse or senior move a seated person up to a table without safely, with grace and ease, and without risk of incurring personal injury? We believe that by design, chairs need to incorporate features that allow chairs to swivel, turn, roll, and lock for safety. And by design, tables need to lift and extend individually. The further breakdown of those terms is on this slide and on the next slide. You can see that the first slide on the extreme left is a chair that has an attachment, the caddy attached to the bottom of it. And this caddy can turn, roll, and break. The first of the three chairs to the left, this chair swivels and locks every 90 degrees. On this particular chair, the base remains solid on the floor, and it's the top half of the chair that swivels. And I'll show you videos in terms of how that chair works in terms of getting somebody up to a table. The middle chair swivels, locks, but the chair itself rolls and breaks. And so not only does the chair swivel between 12 and 3 and lock automatically, but now you can also move the chair a greater distance away from the table. And we'll talk about how that benefits individuals when it comes to table interference. Then the last chair is a chair that turns, rolls, and breaks. And here you can see that it's the entire chair that turns. And so this chair turns, rolls, and so you can actually move the chair to the person as opposed to moving the person to the chair. Maybe this slide will help that explain that a little better. Again, let's start on the far left. A typical chair is pulled partially away from the table. Caregivers understand that when they're offering assistance in terms of getting somebody up to a table, once the person is seated, it is up to them to move them the rest of the way up to the table. And so with the limitations of a chair, they open up the chair just as little as they have to, making it a little awkward for somebody to be seated, but nevertheless, the person can get seated, thus allowing the caregiver to do the amount of work that they're physically capable of being able to put together. Chairs that swivel, turn, and roll now, have these other features. And so the second chair swivels and locks. And so you can see that the seat turns a full 90 degrees. There's no interference. There's no obstruction from the table. The person that is being seated has full access to the chair. If it's an armchair, they can have access to all of the arms, etc., so they can get themselves seated safely, and then they can rotate themselves back to the table. And you rotate it then from 3 o'clock back to 12 o'clock, and it will lock automatically. The middle chair of the three has exactly the same feature, swivels from 12 to 3 and locks. But then you can see that the chair, because of the caddy, can now be pulled away from the table. And so if you've got a situation where a person requires two caregivers to get them seated at the table, maybe a situation where they're not steady on their feet and they're using crutches or a walker or a rollator, all of those gadgets are things that interfere in terms of being able to be seated. Now you can pull the chair as far away from the table as you need to. Again, once the person is seated, rotate the seat back towards the table and then push them forward. And whether that's going to be 1 foot or 2 foot or 3 feet, it really doesn't matter because the effort required to move them is now accommodated by the wheels. The last chair is the chair that turns. And so here you can see again that the entire chair turns away from the table and the chair can now be brought to where the person is. And so if you're accommodating somebody in a home setting that is using a walker, maybe they've got Parkinson's or Alzheimer's and they're somewhat less than steady on their feet, you can actually take the chair and come right up behind them, assist them in terms of being seated, leave the walker where it is, and then you can bring the chair right back to the table. So the arrows in the bottom just help explain exactly what these chairs are, the differences. For the circles for starters, the first chair is the chair is seat is partially accessible. And you can see that as soon as chairs are able to swivel and turn, the entire seat is available. And then the arrows indicate that you need to bring the person to the chair. So in the first 3 examples, it's the person that is assisted to the chair once seated and be moved up to a table. The beauty of the chair that turns and rolls is that you can actually take the chair to the person. Let's look at a few options. The first one that we identified was the chair caddy. And this is essentially what the chair caddy is. It's an attachment that goes onto the bottom of an existing chair. It can attach to a chair that's either wood or metal. It has a low profile design. It only raises the chair some 3/4 of an inch above the floor. The caddy itself, by its design, fits inside the footprint of the chair, so there's no tripping hazards. There's 2 caddies that are available, a larger one with 4-inch diameter wheels and a smaller one for smaller chairs with a 3-inch front caster. There's anti-tip glides, there's front wheel tension controls, foot activated locking casters. The larger one is rated to carry 450 pounds. Again, it attaches to both arm and armless chairs, and it can be custom sized at the factory to accommodate the style of chair that you're looking for. Here's an animated video that shows how this particular chair operates, or the caddy operates. So you can see it's adjustable sidewise and depth-wise. You can see the rotation of the rear wheels and the lockability of the casters. Once it is custom sized, the chair comes down, it sits on the platforms and then bolted on from the bottom side. So none of the attachment screws are visible, they're all hid from the bottom. And then the movement of the chair allows this type of activity. So again, they can move the chair to the person, have them be seated, and then bring them there. Once they're seated, the opportunity of being able to lock the rear casters for safety is your option. Chair caddy in this application is shown in a long-term care community. It works as well in home care as well as in hospitality and restaurants. But again, the issue is that the person is seated and then they are effortlessly moved up to the table, securing their rear brakes for safety. Option 2 is now the full chairs. So let's look at the line of chairs. So this was the first chair that we identified that swivels and locks for safety. In this case, the care staff opened the seat from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, enabling a person to be seated. Once seated, if they have the ability to release the lock, they can do so, or the caregiver is able to rotate them back to the table. The locking device locks automatically every 90 degrees. So the chair locks at 12 o'clock and then it locks at 3 o'clock. To exit the chair, it's just a matter of reversing the activity. And you can now see that again, it's very easy for the person to use the arms for support and to stand up, walk away from the chair, access their walker or any other assisted device that they have. Swivels and locks for safety. This chair swivels, locks, rolls, and breaks. And so you can see that this individual is coming to the table with the use of the walker. The chair is moved away from the table. Once he is seated comfortably, the caregiver is able to release the lock, swivel the chair back from 3 o'clock to 12 o'clock. And as you can see, he isn't close enough to the table to eat. This would not be a safe manner for him to do so. And now the chair caddy just enables the caregiver to move him directly up to a table, one seated comfortably, the locks in place, and allow the senior to enjoy the meal. Again, approaching the chair, using a walker, using a rollator, being assisted by care staff, being able to be seated without any worry about interference from the table. And once seated, being able to be turned right back to the table and moved forward. This chair has some very interesting applications within a home care setting, as often seniors have more than one activity that they want to do. And so you can see here that we're using exactly the same chair. To the right side is a dining table, and to the left side is an activity table or a computer table. And so if the family is struggling in terms of how do we transfer mom or dad from a chair to a walker and back into another chair, here's an option that can actually be arranged whereby the person can be seated and can comfortably access the dining table, as well as the activity space. The Caddy on this particular chair does not turn, it rolls in a straight line, sort of as railroad tracks. And so you can appreciate that it's just rolling up to the table, rolling away from the table, continuing the rotation from 12 to 3, all the way to 6 o'clock, and then moving forward in that particular direction. So these first 3 videos, in terms of chairs, were chairs that swiveled, where the top half of the chair is separate from the base. Now let's look at chairs that turn, where it's the entire chair that turns. And so this chair turns, rolls, and brakes for safety. Once the wheels are released, the person is able to be wheeled up to the table and the brakes apply. This feature is available on a chair that's 22 inches wide, 24 inches wide, or 30 inches wide. And as you saw in the video, the brakes have a foot application. And so these have a foot brake attached from the rear, completely accessible by the caregiver. Another braking system that is available on a chair that has exactly the same features is a chair that turns, rolls, and brakes, but it is a hand release. And here you will see that the chair itself right now is locked. The person is able to be seated. And once seated, they are in control of the lever. They can release the front wheels, and now they can foot propel themselves up to the table. Once seated, locking the chair for safety and security. To exit the chair, it's just a matter of releasing the wheels, pushing back on the chair to the point where you're comfortable, securing the wheels once again, and then getting up from the chair. These features too are available in a chair that's 22 inches wide, 24 inches wide, and 30 inches wide. The 30-inch wide chair is one that is frequently identified for a home office environment. You've got a relatively large person. And so that will be the next video that we will have a look at. So this chair again turns, rolls, and brakes for safety. This is a 30-inch wide chair. It allows the individual to move effortlessly through the room. You can see by this that you still have a full range of movement in terms of how that chair operates. The safety component for this is that you can appreciate that the wheels are at the outside of the frame. If you look at any of the current chairs that you're presently sitting in, you'll notice that you're sitting on a single piston and you've got a 5-star base caster. That chair swivels and turns, but because it has no locking ability, there's an element of safety that is missing. And so you can appreciate the stability that this product provides, even a person that is up to 600 pounds. As we identified, we also believe that you're going to be accommodating seniors, that tables need to lift and extend individually. Meal times are just simply more enjoyable if the tabletop can be suitably positioned for each guest. It reduces spills, there's more enjoyment, it allows families to eat together. There are 3 different styles of tables that are available. This is the 4-person table where you sit in a cluster at 12, 3, 6, and 9. There's another version where you actually have 2 people sitting at 12 o'clock and 2 people at 6 o'clock, and the sides are open, and then there's a 2-person table. So each of the leaves is able to adjust individually, 10 inches vertically and 6 inches horizontally. So how do you know if any of your customers or your clients have any need of these products? The marketing challenge is talking to individuals about something that they've never seen, and that is chairs that swivel, turn, roll, and brake for safety are new into the market. The appreciation for the role of the caregiver is something that we're identifying. And so it's by association that an awful lot of these activities are put together. And so as a goodly number of you are CAPS certified individuals, OTs, PTs, you're going to be involved in providing people assistance in their homes. And if individuals have an outside ramp, if they have a stair lift, there's walk-in tubs, handrails, if they're asking you to be involved in a ceiling lift, making doors wider or adjusting kitchen counters, all of these are indications that people are saying, we want to stay at home, and the mobility we have is creating some difficulty for us. And so it is a matter of being able to identify it and then ask the question, and how are you enjoying a meal at meal times? Because simply the use of a wheelchair or walker is not an option that people are looking for. So again, by association, these are the items. The advantage that you have is that you're literally going into their homes. You're seeing firsthand the type of living situations that they have. And you're going to see very quickly the challenges that people have in terms of how do we get seated at a table. Some of the marketing materials that we have available, we'll talk about a dealer booklet a little later. I've got some highlights here in terms of a trifold brochure that's available for self-education. And there's two different ways in which you can use that. And it's a matter of these webinars. We host these webinars on a regular basis. OTs and PTs are obviously one group that we target frequently. CAPS certified aging in place specialists, as well as getting into administrators that are involved in long-term care homes. The brochures that we have, the first one looks like this, and is for a dealer program. And should you be interested in the dealer program, you'd be able to obtain this brochure. You can see there's a space allowed for your contact information. And then there is an online link that allows individuals to watch a series of videos at home, and that's at ComforTekSeating.com/DME. As a dealer, you would receive this information, you would receive a complete pricer. Individuals would observe the chair, they would identify which one it is that they're looking for, and then they would contact you for more information and for pricing. And so that would allow you to adjust your margin level that you want to have in terms of how you want to provide information to them. The other program that we have is a referral program. And you can see that instead of applying your stamp, your name, your contact information on the bottom of the brochure, you have a discount code. And so that would be unique to you. And then the brochure identifies that we send the customers to a slightly different location, that is ComforTek.com/swivel. And this particular link will also allow them to be able to observe the chairs, observe the videos in terms of the chairs in action. But this would then give them direct access to our e-commerce site. And so if they have any questions at that point, they call us. So whereas in the dealer program, they're talking to you and asking you for information, in the referral program, they're contacting us. They would buy the product online. They would use your discount code. And that discount code does two things. It provides your customers with a discount, and it also flags it for us that there is a referral fee that we need to be sending off in your particular direction. So that referral fee on a chair-by-chair basis ranges anywhere between $75 and $100 a chair. So you can decide which level of activity and of involvement you want to have when you're talking with your clients. The greatest appreciation of this furniture will be evident in the lives of cherished loved ones, as they will experience an increased sense of dignity and self-worth. I encourage you to remember that the living room and the dining room are the only public spaces where families can meet to enjoy each other's company. The other parts of the home are personal and private and intimate, and they most certainly can't be showcased. And so it is certainly our encouragement that you, in talking to your clients and your seniors, encourage them to do whatever they can to make these times to be as stress-free for all members of the family. Why should you consider including this particular product in your line? I suggest several reasons. product line like this will create a brand new revenue stream for you. It will most certainly differentiate you from other buildings and other CAPS people in the area. The chair caddy is attached to an existing chair. You already have the skills, and so that is something that you'd be able to very easily add to their system. You already have firsthand information about their living conditions. You are being invited into their homes. And so you would be able to identify not only the needs in their living room, the bedroom, the bathroom, but you'd also be able to look at the kitchen in terms of being able to identify what options they might be using there that could be of interest to them as well. Weight is your friend. If you look at these particular chairs, maybe you can't notice the weight of these chairs, but frequently people that are trying to provide assistance to a seated person getting up to a table, they ask for as light a chair as possible. They just don't appreciate that it's not really the chair, it's the person that you're having to move up to the table. And so all of these chairs weigh between 40 and 80 pounds. That gives you the stability, knowing that these chairs will not move on you unexpectedly, but that also creates a difficulty in terms of shipping them and handling them. And so it just makes more sense that we could utilize your skill set in terms of being able to provide full service delivery to each one of your particular residents. Specialized seating for seniors and caregivers. Eliminating the need for the caregiver to push, pull, shove, and twist. Reducing stress and anxiety for both the seated person and the caregiver, thereby creating a more enjoyable mealtime routine for all. Steve, I trust that that helps. That's the information that we have available, and I'm certainly open to answering additional questions. If you notice on the bottom of this particular screen, there is a link entitled www.comfortek.com/care. And we advise you to record that information and send it to each one of your clients. That's a landing page. It's not a PowerPoint presentation. Your customer doesn't need to have any special tools to upload or open that link. But if they go to that particular link, they'll be able to also watch all of the videos and read more of the story. So if you're looking for more information after this, and a PowerPoint presentation is not what you want to review, or if you want to review it with your clients, just keep that in mind. So www.comfortek.com/care. With that, I turn it back to Steve.
Yeah, Randy, we had a couple of questions. I think you touched on it, but you might want to visit it again. The question is, how many inches higher does the caddy raise the chair? 3/4
of an inch.
3/4.
Your standard seat height of a chair ranges between 17 and 18 inches. And with the caddy attached, the chair itself is raised 3/4 of an inch. So it really becomes insignificant in the overall experience that you have in terms of using the chair and a table.
Okay, and the other question was, can you speak again to expectations around delivery?
Expectations around delivery. All of these products are manufactured and fully assembled at our factory in Victoria, Virginia. We have a stocking program that is increasing on a regular basis. And so we are shipping products out in 3 to 5 business days. If you were looking for a customized fabric that we would be putting onto a chair, that might extend between 6 and 10 days. Again, our preference is to be utilizing certified aging in place specialists who would be interested in possibly looking at more than one chair at a time because of the numbers of clientele that you have. And so it actually reduces the cost of shipping if we can ship 2 or 3 or 4 chairs at one time. We do have a drop ship program. And so again, however you want to participate, we certainly are able to accommodate you in that manner.
Okay, great. We had a question. The chairs come in several widths, which you addressed. Do they also come in various heights or adjustable heights?
When we designed these chairs, we were already putting in enough mobility action that we were not able to bring an adjustability in terms of height. The chairs can come as an 18-inch seat height or a 20-inch seat height, but they need to be ordered that way. They do not have the ability of adjusting as probably each one of the task chairs is that you're presently sitting on. Again, the design challenge that we had was to try to find that balance in terms of providing assistance and safety. And by adding an adjustability to it, we lost the ability of being able to lock the swivel. And so we opted for locking the swivel as being the more important feature. And then we accommodate the seat heights by having two different heights available.
Here we have a question. The depth of the chair, what is it, and does it vary with the width?
No, it doesn't vary with the width. It's 17.5 inches. And so
say that again, please.
17.5 inches is the depth of the seat. The overall chair is 24 inches from front to back, but the seat is 17.5 inches. The bariatric chairs, we actually have a T2 design that's going to be coming up shortly. If you've got customers that are in that 300, 400, 500 pound range, there we're actually going to have the depth increase up to 19.5 inches. And so we're going to have an adjustable back that will allow the back to go further on the frame, thereby being able to accommodate them.
Okay. Let's see. Question about pricing on the different chair options and how that might vary.
The chairs have a range in price anywhere between $400. The largest ones would be up in the $750 range. As a certified aging in place specialist, we would provide you with a price sheet. You would know exactly what your cost would be, what the suggested MSRP is, and you can determine your own margin. If you're looking at purchasing those particular products off of our website, then we'll just send you to the e-commerce site and you'll be able to see exactly what the prices are.
Other question, these questions are great, y'all. This is very good. Are there differing back heights, like the back of the chair? Does it range in different heights?
No, it doesn't. We've been manufacturing chairs now for just a little over 20 years. And when a chair is being used in a normal dining situation, the need for that isn't there. We have modified some, custom modified them, where individuals are saying we need to have a backrest. And so we've actually been able to raise it higher and then we put a backrest, but that's not a standard part of the program that we have available.
And let's see. Do any of these chairs fall under the coverage of an insurance plan?
No, we've approached Medicare and Medicaid, obviously. There's a sense that these chairs are wheelchair-like. And so there's a lack of an openness in terms of wanting to add any additional products to it. That being said, we do have OTs and PTs that have been able to get insurance companies to pay for the chair because they've assessed the needs of a particular client and identified this as a product that would work in their environment. And so we do have situations where that has occurred, but it's done on a case-by-case, one-by-one basis.
Generally, Medicare does not cover it.
Does not cover it, no.
Okay.
No, it does not cover it in this one.
Scott just put a note in here that if anybody has any other questions, feel free to reach out to Randy or to Scott. Your emails are published or not published?
Yes, they are. They're all published. It's Randy at ComforTek and Scott at ComforTek, and we'll certainly make those available. You did see it on the last slide. I had my email address, and we can give that to you, Scott, just in terms of sending up a follow-up email to all participants.
Okay. Do we have some other questions, comments, experiences? Has anyone used the chairs so far? Any personal experience or anecdotes with the chairs? Okay, other questions for Randy? Anything that you'd like to add, Randy, based on the discussion, or maybe something that you thought you wouldn't have time to work in? Now we have a couple extra minutes if you want to add something.
No, I just want to express appreciation to individuals for considering and looking at this. As we have talked to durable medical equipment dealers over the last number of years, as we've talked to CAPS people, invariably they ask themselves the question, are customers asking for this product? And if they say no, then they're saying, well, there's no need for it. And that's because they've never seen these particular options. And so we do have a patent on the Caddy by virtue of what we've been able to put together. And so it is new to the marketplace. But as people just sit back and understand what is the process of getting someone moved up to a table, it is all about the person that stands behind the chair. And my industry, the chair industry, hasn't changed chairs in thousands of years. On a different presentation, we've actually got a picture of what's deemed to be the first chair created a little over at 3000 BC. And it has 4 legs, it has a back, and it has a seat. But again, chairs are designed for able-bodied individuals. And the question is, when you have somebody that isn't able-bodied, how do you accommodate not them as much, but it's the person that stands behind the chair? And interestingly, we think that because we focused on the person that stands behind the chair, we've actually provided a sense of dignity and self-worth to the person that is also being seated. So even though we focused on one person, we significantly benefited the other one at the same time.
Okay. Anything else? Oh, another question came in here. What fabrics are available?
Typically, we use health grade vinyls. All of the chairs that I showed you today, have a vinyl seated back. We do have health grade vinyls. We do have memory care communities that are looking for these chairs. So any of the fabrics that are manufactured by the mills we use, we do not manufacture our own fabric. We use what the industry has put together. And so any number of mills we can use, and they're all health grade materials.
But vinyl.
There are some cloth ones as well, but we certainly recommend vinyl in most applications.
Is that for durability, for cleaning?
Cleaning is the big issue. If fabric is used, it's primarily used on the back of the chair, not on the seat of the chair.
Okay. I don't know if you covered it or not, but the price of the chair caddy, retail price?
Retail price of the chair caddy is $399, $397.
Okay. All right. Let's see if we have anything else coming in. Great questions. Okay. Anything else? Well, Randy, I want to thank you for your time, you and Scott and the other members of your team. And then, I encourage all of you on the call to get in contact with Randy or get in touch with me, and we can make the interface for you. You'll find, as I say, you'll find them also on my affiliated products page on the website. So you have a number of ways to reach out and engage with them. I want to thank everybody for being here today. Randy, thank you so much.
We'll make sure, Steve, that we have a document to you that every time you're putting a program together, you'll be able to send out one PDF that will have all of our contact information. So we'll get that off in your direction as well.
Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the month and a very prosperous, happy and safe 2022.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.